Good morning. It's good to be with y'all. I'm the younger of the two economists, and so I don't know whether I'm a senior citizen, though, I understand. Listen, I want to talk to you a little bit about the ag economy. We're going to go through this at a pretty fast pace. Just a few years ago, we were riding high in agriculture. If you looked at the Wall Street Journal headlines, it was the record net farm incomes. High incomes, highest on record. Now, that was a little bit deceiving because that was mostly from the crop sector, and if you looked at the prices received, you look back to about 2012, 2013, that's when we had really high prices for a lot of our crops, and we were getting really good returns on those, and that's when that U.S. net farm income soared. But it wasn't quite the case for the livestock sector. Our hog industry was struggling with a PED epidemic. The hog and poultry industry and the cattle feeding industry were struggling with very high feed prices, and returns were slim. Now, if you look, when the crop prices started down, which is that bottom line there in 2014, livestock prices went way on up. And what happens when we get better prices? Well, we expand. We're really good at that in agriculture, aren't we? We do that very, very well. And the hog industry got through their PED epidemic. The poultry industry had been expanding because there wasn't as much pork, so they were taking advantage of that. We had had a drought in Texas that had really cut the cattle herd, and cattle producers were enjoying record high prices. And so in 2014, 2015, the livestock sector was enjoying that prosperity that the crop sector had enjoyed just a year or two before. But all things change, and as you'll notice as we went into 2015 and 16, that we started to see a decline in both those sectors. And that's kind of where we're at now. And if you look at U.S. net farm income, we've come off those peaks, and I think the headline in the Wall Street Journal early last fall was lowest net farm income projected in 2 decades. And that was right behind 2 years before saying it was the highest. Now, I have to always employ some sage wisdom from my farmers. They always kind of bring some perspective on this and say, well, you know, you have to be in it for the long haul. We have been through times like this before, and we're going to get through them again. And that's the farmer's attitude, and that's the reason that they persist and the reason that we have them. Now, if you look at North Carolina, we actually didn't quite follow the U.S. trend. We followed more the trend of the livestock industry because that's very, very important here in North Carolina. And instead of 2013 being our peak income was in 2014, net cash farm income. And of course, we're down in 2015. We don't have the final numbers out on 2016 yet, but it will be lower again, unfortunately. I just want to focus on North Carolina. I'm going to pick it apart a little bit here and first talk about the livestock sector. These are 2015 numbers, but out of $11.6 billion in cash farm receipts, 7.96 were from the livestock industry. That's about 68% of our cash farm receipts coming from livestock. So it's very, very important. And as you can see, chickens, broilers, and hogs are the 2 biggest parts of that. So whenever you look at the livestock sector, what do we see? And this is kind of the message in general. We've got large supplies. We did a really good job reacting to lower feed prices, higher hog prices, getting through the epidemic, and now both the hog and the poultry industry have got very large supplies on hand, and we know what that means. That means lower prices. Well, cattle producers did the same thing. They basically responded to those very high prices. They held back heifers. The cow herd is way up. And so cattle prices are down. Now for the livestock sector, the thing that I would say though is yes, prices are down, but the one bright spot in there, if we're looking for a rose, is basically because feed prices are also down. We've got corn under $4. Now we're a corn deficit state and we pay a pretty good basis on that corn, so our corn prices are probably more like $4. But corn prices are down, soybean prices are down. That's not good news for crop farmers, but it is good news for cattle feeders, for the hog industry, and for the poultry industry. It changes, doesn't it? Now, it's not good news for our cow-calf producers in North Carolina because we don't really feed out cattle here, do we? Well, we feed out more for local beef than we used to, but that's pretty small. But most of our guys are cow-calf producers, and their prices are at record lows right now, and that kind of hurts. And my cousin asked me the other day, he said, aren't they going to be better this year, Blake? He said, I held all my calves over this winter, and I'm going to sell them this spring. I said, I hate to tell you, but I don't think this will be the year, maybe year after next. But this is a year when we're going to see continued large supplies of livestock. We're going to continue to see those prices. The forecasts are generally, it doesn't matter whether it's cattle or hogs or poultry, the price forecasts are basically down for all of those. And hogs is probably the hardest hit of that, basically because of the tremendous expansion they did after the PED. But again, feed prices are low, so it makes it a little bit better than if we were in a different situation like we were a few years ago. In fact, I'm not sure whether the margins are better now or whether they were a few years ago when we had high feed prices and some real issues in our livestock industry. Now let me move on to crops. Crops are still very important in North Carolina, $3.68 billion in 2015. And we grow a huge variety of crops. And if we had time, and if I were really an expert in all these crops, we could stay here all day and talk about all the different niches that we fill. Our strength in North Carolina is the fact that we grow so many different specialty crops. We're really a state of specialty crop producers. We do have grain crops. We have soybeans. They're big acreages. We used to have big acreages of cotton. We used to be number 4 in cotton. But we grow lots of what most folks would think of as specialty crops. We probably don't think of them that way because they're big crops here, like sweet potatoes and tobacco that I'll say a little bit more about later. I'm going to hit some of the big commodity ones first. Cotton is the same story that we see in livestock. It's the same story we see in corn and soybeans. We've got large supplies and we've got very large ending stocks in cotton. Now I would say that cotton's problem is a little bit more complex than just having large supplies right now and too much production a year or two ago. We have two issues going on in cotton here that's really affecting world fiber use or world mill use of cotton. One is that we have cheap oil. Cheap oil is good in a lot of ways, right? And it lowers the input cost on farms. But when we have cheap oil, it means very cheap polyester in developing countries, and they tend to switch away from cotton towards polyester. There's nothing new about that, but it's happening right now. Now, the other more fundamental issue is that we have some really, really high-tech fibers out there now that you and I, who were growing up in the 70s, would have never called polyester. In fact, they don't like to call them polyester now because that makes people give visions. Well, young people don't know about leisure suits and stuff, but we remember that, don't we? And you know, the truth is, the polyester of today is very high-tech. It's very incredible fabrics, and in developed countries where price doesn't matter as much, that's really taken a substantial share away from cotton in the European Union and the US. So what we need in cotton is another technological leap like we had in the 80s. You know, in the 80s they came out with a lot of wrinkle-free cotton that took the market back from polyester. We got away from those leisure suits, thank goodness. So we need another technological leap in cotton really to take us forward to compete well with the polyester market. Until that happens, I'm afraid we're going to be dealing with a difficult situation in cotton. And of course, cotton's very dependent on trade. We export about 70% of our cotton here in the United States. I'm not going to say a whole lot about corn and soybeans. This is a slide I borrowed from Iowa State University, except to say we got big supplies. We had a record crop last year in corn. And so we have a lot of corn. And in fact, the price forecast for this coming year, and this is out of the Midwest, is about $3.30 a bushel. Now here in North Carolina, you know, you can put, depending on when you put your corn, you can put a 40 to even sometimes as much as a 90 cent per bushel a positive basis on that because we live in a corn deficit area. So it's a little bit better for ours, but at best we're still looking at $4 corn. Now my prediction is, given the way cotton is, we'll still see quite a bit of corn produced in North Carolina, and we have put down a lot more center pivots in our state, and so irrigation is a bigger factor, so that allows us to grow corn at reasonable yields, which we didn't used to actually be able to do. Soybeans, the situation is a little bit better. And in the short term, our big competitor in these crops, and in fact in the livestock sector too, is Brazil. And Brazil produces a lot of soybeans. I was on a farm in Brazil a couple of years ago, 600,000 acres of soybeans on that one farm. Amazing. It's just totally amazing. It's scary. But they have huge infrastructure problems. They have all kinds of issues that farmers here don't have to deal with. And I have heard that their soybean crop this year is not turning out that great. And so when you have poor weather in the southern hemisphere, it has big effects up here. It generally makes our markets go up. And that's what we've seen in soybeans. So soybean price is still above $9. and so they're still fairly bright, you know, and I wouldn't say that's bright, but relative to some of the other crops, you know, it's not terribly bad. So we've seen actually record soybean use, and part of that's just because of the expansion we saw in the livestock sector. Peanuts. Now let me go on to some more specific crops that are really important here in North Carolina. Peanuts is an important crop for us in the eastern part of North Carolina. Peanuts is really dependent on the Farm Bill right now. That's really what is driving peanut production in North Carolina and in South Carolina, and even more so in Georgia. The Farm Bill has set a very lucrative, or the 2014 Farm Bill set a very lucrative reference price for peanuts. There's fairly substantial payments being made, and we've seen changes in production to reflect that. We've seen huge expansion in peanuts in Georgia, for example, and that's driven the price down for peanuts. And if you look at the national average marketing price, you can see that decline from $498 a ton back in 2013 to 2016. I think it's going to be around $382 a ton. But that's ratcheting up the payment that farmers receive through the Farm Bill for acres of peanuts as long as they're grown on generic base acres. And I don't have time to get into all this. It's very complicated, but it's very important. And that's tied to what we used to call cotton base, which we don't have anymore. It's going to be really, really interesting as we move into the 2018 Farm Bill and begin discussions about that to see what's done with some programs like cotton and peanuts. Because there's a lot of dissatisfaction in general for both of them, even though the peanuts payment is really what's kept us in business in peanuts the last couple of years. So we've seen production go up and up and up. What's interesting is that use has also gone up. Maybe that use will linger even if, you know, the peanut prices change. So here's what I'm talking about with the Farm Bill. If you look at the bottom line, that's the payments per ton of base that farmers can expect. And so I don't think that's going to stick with us past the 2018 Farm Bill. I don't know. We'll have to ask somebody else about that. It's always interesting to see how this goes. But that's really what's kept us going. And it's been tough up here in the Virginia peanut area because most of this production increase has happened in Georgia. That's where we've really seen that. And it's not had a good effect on our Virginia's market for peanuts because we've seen so many runner peanuts, which the grow in Georgia produce. So we'll be interested to see how that goes. Now let's talk about our darling crop. You know, and it really is. Sweet potatoes are really, really a success story. And frankly, a lot of that success is due to the efforts of farmers and the North Carolina Sweet Potato Growers Association here in North Carolina, because they have done a tremendous job getting out there and promoting this crop in the U.S. and promoting it in Europe. And it's frankly a superfood. They've got a great crop that they can promote heavily because it is so successful. And if you look at sweet potato consumption per capita, it is going up substantially, 7.5 pounds per person. And I don't know about you all, but I eat a lot more than that because I love sweet potatoes, don't you? And it's nice to be able to eat something that tastes so good that it's got such a wonderful reputation in terms of nutrition, right? And now that's going to take hold in Europe. Just talking with farmers, I think a bunch of them are over in, going to be at a Berlin trade show next week promoting sweet potatoes, and that's not uncommon. That's what we do. They have offices in Europe promoting these, and we've seen sweet potato exports go up very substantially over the years. Now, you know, there you go. Here's sweet potato exports, 460 million pounds in 2015 from that crop. So very important and going up very substantially. Now, you know, you can always overdo a good thing though, can't you? And this is something we've been afraid of. You know, yes, demand continues to shift out for sweet potatoes. Very positive. I don't see any end to that. You know, it's going to continue to shift out. But, you know, we're really good at producing, and we can get ahead of that demand if we're not careful. And we might have done that in 2016 a little bit. I mean, prices weren't horrible, but they were down very substantially. And it's basically because when farmers looked at all their options in terms of crops, everybody said, I want to grow some sweet potatoes. And you know, that's kind of dangerous. Yes, demand's growing out, but I think we may have jumped ahead of it a little bit this year because our prices are down. You know, I'm hearing, and I'm not a sweet potato expert, but number ones were maybe $7 or $8 a bushel. Is that right? That's what I'm hearing. And so that's down from where we were at. Now, it's still got a positive return over their operating cost, but it's pretty hard to recover all your costs probably at that level. So maybe we'll need to moderate a little bit, or either we're going to have to figure out to keep that demand growing so that will continue strong. And there's the price, and that's in dollars per hundredweight. And if we had 2016 on there instead of $19, my guess is it would be down more towards around $15 a hundredweight, 14 or 15. Now that's not horrible, but it's the margins are really thin when you look at total cost at that level. So. All right, let me talk about tobacco, which is the crop that I spend a lot of time on. And you can't talk about U.S. tobacco without talking about Brazil and Zimbabwe. And so I'll go very quickly here. Brazil had a horrible crop last year that came off in January 2016, and that probably held our tobacco production up a little bit, so it didn't go down as much last year. They had a really good crop this year, though. They had a large crop and a good crop in Brazil, and so when that happens in our southern hemisphere, they're our primary competitor, it has some negative effects up here. Now, it's mixed. You know, I know some companies that are decreasing, but I know others that are actually holding steady, which seems to be mostly the case, and a few that are increasing a little bit. Most of that has to do with the export situation, you know, at least in the short term. And that'll change. Exchange rates will change again. I mean, they've always fluctuated and caused production to go back and forth between Brazil and the U.S., but that'll change again. China is very heavily invested in Zimbabwe, and so I think they're relying very heavily on that crop, even though we really want to see continued growth here from the Chinese. The one that really concerns me, though, is the green portion of this bar. That's use of U.S. tobacco by U.S. cigarette manufacturers. It has really gone down. It's got some wild fluctuations, and the numbers show it to be up in 2016. I'm not quite sure exactly what's going on there. But this is not just lower consumption or lower smoking use. There's something else going on here. Maybe it's less tobacco per cigarette, maybe what we're seeing. And so what has to pick up the slack here is exports. And right now with unfavorable exchange rates, with a big crop in Brazil, they're just not doing that. And this is the big news. If you watch the news, it'll be this heat not burn technology that Philip Morris has made some announcements in Europe that this could easily replace combustible cigarettes. Well, now this is not an e-cigarette, so it does have tobacco in it. And my understanding, it has very high quality tobacco because that's important. That's what the U.S. produces. So this, we're going to have to watch this close. It doesn't have much tobacco in it, but it does have a small amount of real tobacco in it. And the question is whether or not, you know, they will be getting that tobacco from the U.S. You're going to learn more about that. We'll talk a little bit more about it tomorrow. Now, just some takeaways on tobacco. We're going to have to really watch and see what happens in developing countries, because as incomes rise there in countries like China and Indonesia and Malaysia, smokers there want to smoke a better quality cigarette. And better quality cigarettes mean that they have to have a little bit more U.S. or Brazilian tobacco in them to go with all the filler tobacco they get from everywhere else. So if there's any growth opportunities, it's there. And the other thing, of course, is to watch the heat not burn category. Well, let me finish up on this note. It's not the rosiest note, unfortunately, but we just got big supplies in most areas right now. And so we're going to be looking at a bottom line, big supplies, and notice how I said that's subdued demand. Is that a better word than some others? And we'll see continued downward pressure on a lot of prices for commodities this year. But hopefully we'll get through this year and we'll get back in balance in the coming year. So I'll end on that note, and thank y'all very much for having me.